Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. We did not get to do a live last week because, well, I was in trial, and trial got over a little sooner than expected, so that was a good thing. One thing I'm realizing is that, man, I'm tired. It's the end of May, and this year has literally been nonstop from the beginning. And just to give some perspective as to how busy it has been, I literally had two homicide cases, totaling 3 dead bodies that resolved short of having to go to trial. Otherwise, I would have had at least another 3 weeks in trial. So I'm kind of enjoying not being in trial for a little while. The next big one is in July, so I've got a little time to prepare for that. And that's one of the reasons why I run just a little bit late here, was because I was, you never know what's going to happen in the area of criminal law. Let me give you an example. This is what I love about my job is I never have the same day twice. What I hate about my job is I never have the exact same day twice, ever. And yesterday I was thinking this is going to be great. I'm in court, or I don't have any court. This is going to be fabulous. I'm not going to wear a tie, kind of like I'm doing right now. Not wearing a tie because I didn't have any court. And we've been dealing with this matter. And all of a sudden, I get a call from the public defender office. It's a federal matter. And says, hey, your client's here in custody. I'm like, what are you talking about? Your client's here in custody. I'm like, no, that's impossible, because that United States attorney was going to extend me the courtesy of letting me know when they were going to indict my client, and we were going to get on an airplane and travel to that location and surrender. But no, did that United States attorney do that? No, he did not. So the little United States attorney sends me an email about 20 minutes after I speak with the public defender. Says, hey, by the way, your client is in custody now. And I was like, yeah, thanks for the heads up. Real professional, dude. Real professional. So of course, then I had to go down to court. Fortunately, I had a tie in my car that I could put on. So then I got to go spend a couple hours there. Now, of course, I'm thinking I was scheduled to be in trial. I don't have to be in trial. I'm going to be able to be in the office to get some stuff done. And wow, here it is. Then that happened. And then today, a witness on a very serious case that we've been trying to find and locate, all of a sudden calls the office, and literally just spent the last hour and a half on a call with the key witness and our investigator asking this key witness questions. So you just never know what's going to happen. But of course, what the problem is, and this is the thing, and clients don't always seem to get this, is that in a perfect world, you keep track of your time as an attorney every 6 minutes. Imagine if you had to document every 6 minutes of your day. It's pain, right? And you try to schedule your stuff. I know some people are like, well, I'm going to do this between 8 and 10, and then I'm going to do this, right? So you can block out in your calendar. Hey, I'm going to go to court today. I'm going to have an 8:30 docket. I'm going to be the first one in, and I'm going to do that. Oh, your client's in custody. Oh, sorry, the sheriff was busy today, so he doesn't get called up until 10. So you've waited an hour and a half to get your client called up. So that time that you've wasted in court, now, you try to do what you can in court and be productive. However, it just screws up your whole day. And so then you have to tell, the family, you got to tell, the other clients that, hey, we got to move that schedule back. So when do you get things done? Well, evenings and weekends. I was in here, I guess, right before trial. I mean, it was great. No interruptions. It was amazing. Got a bunch of stuff done, but that's just it. Everybody thinks that lawyers have the easiest job in the world. And don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. I get up every morning and say, thank you. I get to be a lawyer. It kind of beats working for a living, so to speak. But man, some days. And when you're dealing with other people's problems and everybody thinks their problem is more important than everybody else's problem, it can get a little stressful. So anyway, just filling in on that. So we had trial last week, busy year so far. I cannot believe that we are heading into June. The year is literally half over, and it has literally flown by. And like I said, not complaining, but normally at the end of the year, I take kind of that last 2 weeks of Christmas and go on a vacation because the courts are all but closed. But this year I didn't do this because I was starting a trial right after the first of the year, and I didn't get to take kind of my regular vacation. And it's literally just been nonstop, go, go, go. So I think the lovely Miss Kristen and I need to find a way to get away. So yeah, we'll see. All right, let's take some questions. Obviously, we weren't here last week, but Lori Vallow went down. Gosh, it's been 2 weeks now since she was found guilty. Hey, did it really surprise that many of you? No. Should we grade? I think we should grade. I think I'd give the prosecution a B, and I would give the defense a C-D. I've never heard an opening statement like that before. It was absolutely, I thought, unbelievable. I thought it was terrible. The statement that Mr. Archibald gave. The closing, I don't think, was any better either. Just saying. All right, got a super chat up here. Scott, what's your take on how Pryor's going to do? Well, the bar has been set rather low. And here's what I've said about Mr. John Pryor, who, for those who aren't familiar, John Pryor is the counsel for Chad Daybell. Chad Daybell is Lori Vallow's husband. Chammy Daybell was his wife, who's now deceased. He's charged with her murder, along with Lori Vallow, who was convicted of that, along with the deaths of JJ and Ty Lee as co-conspirators. Well, let's just say prosecution didn't exactly wow me. And remember, you can go back and listen to all of those hours and hours of courtroom testimony. They're all on audio. We have the verdict as well. That's video, because the court finally blessed us with they're saying that we could handle the jury verdict. Everything else, though, is such a privacy interest, and oh my gosh, it's going to affect the trial. Bunch of hogwash, Judge Boyce. Listen, you think that couldn't have been televised and somehow the decorum of the courtroom is going to be affected? I don't think so. All right, getting back to the question. Sorry, we digress. Sometimes we do that. So John Pryor, attorney for Chad Daybell, how's he going to do? Well, we've actually seen John Pryor perform, and that was at the preliminary hearing eons and eons ago when this first case started, some 3 years ago. And whether you like Mr. Pryor or not, some people are like, oh, I don't like him. He's a trial attorney. Now, Mr. Archibald, I guess he's got a lot of homicide cases under his belt. I'd be curious to know how many he's ever won. Just saying. Just because you have a lot of homicides on your belt doesn't mean you're any good. I mean, not to brag, but as I sit here behind the CrimeTalk case, I mean, I've handled more murders, attempted murders than one we did last week. I don't think I'm speaking out of school there. Guy was charged with 4 counts of attempted murder. We went down on 2. I know it's a problem. Could have won all 4. Should have won all 4, but we didn't. And I hate losing. Okay, but it was a dogfight, and my philosophy is, even if, let's say, my client doesn't have a great shot of going to trial and prevailing on all of the counts, guess what, Mr. Prosecutor? I'm going to make you crawl over glass to get there. And along the way, we are going to create some air. So more than likely, this case is going to come back. We'll see what happens, but I think some air was made. So how's Pryor going to do? Pryor is a trial attorney. He actually did really well at the preliminary hearing. You can go back and look at the video. I said he did pretty well at the preliminary hearing. I was relatively impressed. Like I said, compared to, if you want to scale it, what Archibald and the other guy, the guy that looks like John Candy, that was Lori Vallow's attorney. Frank, can you find a comparison picture of Chris Farley? Chris Farley, Chris Farley. Guy looks like Chris Farley. I swear to God, I know Chris Farley's dead, but maybe he left to be an attorney in Utah. Okay, just saying, just saying. I don't know, but that's what he looked like. So John Pryor is going to do well. Okay, he's already knows he's got a terrible case along with some terrible facts. His wife is dead. He's got 2 dead children that just happened to be found on his property. Bad fact. Just saying, bad fact. And, your wife is dead. Oh, and then, by the way, you run off to Hawaii to date, your smoking hot girlfriend, right? She rocked your world. You're going to leave everybody. And then all of a sudden, what is it, what's it really worth to make all this trouble go away? Now, it really doesn't sound like Mr. Chad Daybell really has anything of value to his name other than his house, which my understanding is that Mr. Pryor has received that in exchange for his representation of legal services. And I mean, I don't know how they're paying for the attorney. I really just don't see it with the amount of discovery, the amount of time. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think Pryor, assuming he stays on the case, I think that he will actually do quite well. Like I said, you may not like him, but my God, at least he has a pulse. Archibald, oh my God. Well, hi. I'm Mr. Archibald. I've been doing this a long time, and most of our cases resolve, but sometimes they can't. And well, that's where you all come in. And I mean, it was like, are you kidding me? I have seen high school mock court students give a better opening statement and closing than Mr. Archibald did in that case. Now, don't get me wrong. Am I a fan of Lori Vallow? No. But I like to see good lawyering. Everybody should. It's like if you went to the horse races and one horse sprinted out so far ahead, you'd be like, well, that wasn't a very good race, right? I mean, you want to see good lawyering. You want to see some suspense, some passion. And maybe you think, oh my God, this guy has so much passion. Maybe his client didn't know. So obviously, what's the defense? Lori Vallow, she had some really weird text messages. Let's face it, those text messages buried her, where they start talking about the light and the dark and all that kind of stuff. And so that is going to be the same problem that Chad Daybell has to deal with is, really, dude? Okay, you really think you can tell who's a good person and a bad person? And one good point that Mr. Archibald did make is, yeah, he's such a convincing guy, such a profound world leader that everyone's following him. By his count, he had managed to get 6 people to follow him, and they needed 144,000 for the end days. So, most people would not follow Chad Daybell other than maybe out of idle curiosity. I don't know. But I think his attorney's going to pull the hat out of the bag. He's going to play it up. He's got some ability to push the limits, I think, that will make the DA and the judge uncomfortable. And clearly all you have to do, I think it was evident when there was actually an objection that the prosecution got flustered and didn't know what to do, particularly Mr. Wood. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully that answers your question. I know we digressed just a little bit. I thought there was another super chat up there, and another one. Do you think that Chad will turn on Lori? That day has come and gone. That is pretty much over. So no, I don't think Chad is going to turn on Lori at all. What's he got? If he was going to do something, his time would have been before he went to trial to testify, to say, yes, we plotted to kill the children, anything along those lines. So His time has come. Do they need any help on the 2 cases now in Arizona? One obviously for the death of Charles Vallow, husband number 4, I believe, for Lori Vallow. And then she was just recently indicted as it related to the shooting of her niece's ex-husband, Mr. Boudreaux, down there as well. I don't think anybody cares, to be honest with you. The chances of Lori Vallow, um, probably getting to Arizona anytime soon, I would say are probably unlikely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I hope they do, and I hope they televise it. But at the end of the day, Arizona's going to say, "Oh, we've got a hold on Lori Vallow. We've got her indicted." Yeah. My first question is, God, if Arizona had done something, not to throw stones, but just kind of calling it the way it is, the elephant in the room, had Chandler, Arizona Police Department done something early on, maybe took Charles Vallow seriously, that something's not right, that his wife needs mental help. But they didn't. They just like, well, sir, it's a civil matter. And don't get me wrong, we don't want police delving into people's private lives, maybe as little as possible, not as much as possible. And, but seriously, had they maybe looked into this just a wee bit, it makes you kind of wonder if everything else would have followed the way that it did. I mean, if Lori Vallow had to stay in Arizona and had to deal with a ex-husband, regarding, a child, etc., maybe she doesn't get to take him. Maybe one or both of those children are still alive. It just makes you think about it, how things are just kind of roll in motion along the way. So yeah, I don't see that. Maybe if anyone was going to take try to help themselves out, maybe Lori Vallow would be the one to try to step up now and say, "Hey, I want to help and give some information as it relates to Chad Daybell." Chad's not charged with anything in Arizona, so not that I think he's going to not spend the rest of his life in prison. My humble opinion. Obviously, we'll give him the presumption of innocence, however, but I think based upon what we know, that it is going to be okay, or that he's going to be convicted. It just takes time. Now, of course, Mr. Pryor doing what a lot of good defense attorneys do for a strategy when you know that you're going to get devastated, crushed. You delay. He got a severance. Because right now there'd be 2 convicted people if they were tried together. At least his client date is set out farther. He gets to live another day, figuratively speaking. And of course, obviously, the case is subject to the death penalty. So we'll have to see if, the prosecution wants to go forward on that. I mean, I don't know. Do you think the prosecution has the belly for that? I didn't exactly see. I don't know. I just wasn't that impressed with the prosecutors and what they were trying to do. And this is a new thing that they're trying to do where they put up like this summary of the witness. They've been teaching this at U.S. Attorney School lately. Let's put up our detective to summarize all of this information and basically give you a closing statement. Or we've summarized your testimony. Like, I would be objecting to all of that. I do not understand why Mr. Archibald did not object to that. Well, I prepared a PowerPoint. Okay, with stuff that hasn't been admitted quite yet. Like, lay the freaking individual foundation for each and every exhibit. Okay. And I know that drives sometimes judges for sure, juries sometimes, yes. Lay the freaking foundation. Okay. It's relevant. It's important. It's part of the process. This crap of, well, it goes to its weight, not its admissibility. The jury can decide what weight to give it. You're right, Judge. You're right. We should just completely abolish the rules of evidence and let's just put it all in. Because by God, the prosecution should be allowed to do whatever the hell they want. Let's just call it the way it is, Judge. Would you like to come have a seat over here at the prosecution table? It just seems like it's getting that way. Clumsy clairvoyance. I wasn't impressed with them either. And Frank, did I see there that we have, look, there's the other attorney for Lori Vallow and the deceased Chris Farley. Okay. Just saying. Do we actually have proof that Chris Farley has passed away? I don't know. I can just kind of see him there with his tight suit on Saturday Night Live. Just saying. You decide. You decide. We bring you the facts. You decide. And and obviously I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it's lightheartedness. I mean, I'm just saying. He looks like it. What's his name again? Why do I remember? I can't remember. No, the other guy. John Thomas. That was it. Yeah, he was so unremarkable he didn't do opening, he didn't do closing, didn't do did a couple of witnesses, and even then, so you went to a really big school. Okay. Yeah. Wow, you must be a really smart guy. Well, I don't know. It is what it is. We got a super chat. Let's see. It's not showing up on this one over here. Well, let's see here. Let's scroll on down. Question. Do you think Pryor will do a lot better on cross? Obviously, I don't know for certain because I don't have a crystal ball. I may have a magic 8-ball, but I don't have a crystal ball. But I think, yes, I think John Pryor will do much better on cross just because we got to see him work already at the preliminary hearing. And he didn't do a bad job. I mean, the case wasn't going to get dismissed at the preliminary hearing, but you knew that he got up there and did it. And that's what I told people early on. He did a pretty good job. He's a trial attorney. Okay. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Let me offend all of the non-litigation attorneys. And let me understand, there's this distinction. Anybody can be a lawyer. I think ChatGPT has proven that. Okay. ChatGPT has proven that anybody can be a lawyer. Not everybody can do trial work, and trial attorneys are not created equal. Okay. Just remember this. Anybody can be a litigator. Litigators go back and forth. They take depositions. They prepare interrogatories in civil cases all day long, and they respond back with, 20 pages of objections before they actually answer the question. Yes. Okay. That's a litigator. They don't go try the cases that often, if ever. Then you have a trial attorney. A trial attorney, somebody goes to court and goes and tries cases. Where do you find trial attorneys? You find them as criminal defense attorneys, or they started off as criminal defense attorneys. If you look at the great litigators, and I mean the really great litigators, the ones that in the civil cases that have won all the big settlements and, or cases at trial, where did they all start? Where did they get their experience? Doing jury trials in criminal cases early on in their career. That's the only people that go to trial. Civil cases don't go to trial that often. And when they do, they settle halfway through. Look at the Fox News case. They settled a day into the trial. They extended it out because nobody wants to go to trial. Jesus, you know what I mean? It's like nobody wants to go to trial. We're talking about money, for God's sakes, people, about people that have a bunch of freaking money. Criminal attorneys, we're talking about people's liberty. You got to be prepared. You got to be on your game. Somebody screws up. Okay, we'll give you the money back. Sorry, whatever. Criminal case, we're talking about people's freedom. It's an awesome responsibility, a heavy, heavy responsibility. So just remember. So there's a difference there between. So and when I say that, I usually offend all of the attorneys that watch, but it's true, and I will just say it because it is in fact true. And I've always said you're not really a criminal defense attorney until you've had to get up and argue that your client has done terrible things to small women and children, and small children and women, etc. And you walk them. Okay. Not necessarily a good thing, but hey, like I said, if you don't like the way a criminal trial turns out, if you think the bad guy got away with it, go blame your local district attorney, because your local district attorney is the one that failed to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Donna has a good super chat question here. Have you done many death penalty cases? If so, how many did you win? Well, Donna, we don't have the death penalty here in Colorado. However, I did a case about, I guess it was probably 9 years ago. It fell onto my desk. It was a cold case, and it was a very bad cold case. And the facts generally were that somebody was going to a residence in a not so great part of town back then, although that area has changed significantly now. And somebody was going to go in and rob the house of drugs. Well, the drugs were not there because the DEA had arrived like a day or two before that. And so when they went in the house, they found basically a bunch of kind of homeless people in there. And let's just say there were 4 people that were alive in there before allegedly my client went in. And only one barely at the end of that. The other were killed, and bad facts. Fast forward then like 20 years later, they get a DNA pop from the alleged sexual assaults that had taken place, and where people's, let's just say they were nearly decapitated. Let's put it that way. It was not good. Somebody had a knife in their eye after their throat had been cut. It was a gruesome case. It was a bad case. Let's just say that. It was a very bad case. And they were going to go death. And obviously my client's DNA in various orifices of people was not good. And so we had an uphill battle. And so the question is, when your client's charged with a death penalty case, what do you do? Well, it's called mitigation. And I still remember I got the call. It was right about Christmas time. And I can't remember if it was right before or right after Christmas. I think it was right after Christmas. I was in California and I got the call on whatever day it was. And it was the district attorney, the elected district attorney, and said, "Hey, Scott, how you doing?" I say, "Hey, doing well. How are you? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year," all that kind of stuff. And I said, "All right, well, what's the decision? Is it going death or not?" And he goes, "We're not going death." I'm like, "Really?" I said, "Anything in particular that you tell me what changed your mind?" And he said the video. Now, remember, this was like I said, God, I can't remember, 10 years ago. This was still relatively new stuff in the legal profession, maybe just kind of starting. When we went around and did our mitigation work, you talk to everybody. Oh, little Johnny didn't have a good life. His mother was a crackhead. He was left alone, starvation, in and out of youth homes, social services, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff that you try to do to explain what led to where they are. And we did that. And then at some point, my co-counsel and my co-counsel then at the time, I remember we were driving through Arkansas from one interview to another, going to Kansas. And she gets the call saying that she was going on the bench. I'm like, "You can't leave me on the bench, right? We have a death penalty case. How can you do this?" Anyway, so she left, and I had to get another new co-counsel for that case. But we did all these videos. We did all these interviews. We went and literally the family was like, "Oh, we're going to get together already. Little Johnny, he was always such a good kid. I mean, he was sure his mom was a, whore and a crackhead and abused him and didn't pay any attention to him." And then something weird and miraculously happened. The mother got clean. She got sober and she found religion. And then she got married. And then she had 2 other children. And it was night and day. My client charged with murder, charged with going to go death. The kid never stood a chance. Never stood a chance. Grew up poorest part of the town. No supervision. Nobody really cared. They thought it was cute that, oh, look, the little one's out here at this party at 4 a.m. partying with his mom, have him dancing on the table. Didn't stand a chance. In and out of youth homes, etc. Like I said, mom gets married, kind of has a do-over, so to speak. It doesn't have to worry about little Johnny because he's off at youth correctional facilities, just the life of crime. And we did an interview with the brother. And this brother, can you imagine two opposite people? One client running the streets literally from the young age. Gangs, drugs, just the worst life you can fear. Whatever it has to offer, he gets it. Other kid, same mom, different dad, completely different environment. And this kid goes off to a great college, literally is working in communications for a Fortune 50 company. And, we have an interview like, hey, little Johnny, blah, blah, blah. What do you tell me about him? And the first words out of his mouth were, he never had a chance. And everybody, that was the theme that kept coming through. He never had a chance. And so when we put this together, we had our video guy, and like I said, it was unbelievable that we even got it done. We were trying to do it right before the holidays, I want to get the DA in that Christmas spirit. And we go in there and like I said, we do our little presentation. We had this video. And of course, our editor guy was making last minute videos and he couldn't get it to work. And so we're like literally carrying the TV from his house just to make sure it works, etc. And we got there and we, probably, looked like going to be a terrible marketing pitch. And we do it. And so the elected DA calls me and says, yeah, we're not going to go death. I said, what was the issue? He goes, it was that video. The brother saying he never stood a chance. I think some people could argue, the whole nature versus nurture thing, right? Kind of pluck two kids out. What is that experiment in that movie with Eddie Murphy, Trading Places, years ago? It was kind of like that. I mean, you literally wouldn't have known these two were brothers if you had saw them on the street, even standing next to one another, just because, one was kind of a preppy guy and the other one was a gangster guy, did drugs, made lots of terrible, terrible decisions, etc. And that was it. So did we win? Well, at that point, they didn't go death. So that was our win. Now, did we still go to court and try and win? Yes. And what did we harp upon? The DNA. There were flaws. We had a DNA expert. And this is the part, I swear to God, ladies and gentlemen, and if there's anything you take from listening to this program, if anything you take from it, okay, is always ask questions. Be skeptical. And just because you don't like where the source is coming from doesn't mean it's not true, okay? We do our defense. We got a DNA expert. My co-counsel loves this DNA. Also now another judge. And we're going through them. We're picking it apart. Like, hey, this stuff isn't right. Doesn't make sense on the DNA. We're like, there's contamination. It's not right. And of course, the DAs dismiss it. Oh, poo. Our labs we are certified. We don't do anything wrong. How dare you question our credentials? We are smart. You're not a scientist. No, that's why I hired experts, because I'm not. And they're telling me your lab is crap. It's messed up. So, of course, we go to trial and, they convict my client. Although I must say it was probably one of the most fun cross-examinations I ever had on one of the co-conspirators who flipped in exchange for a 48-year sentence. Some people would call him a little bitch. Anyway, 48. I want to go to prison for 48 years so I can have a snitch jacket. Really? Wow. You're really not impressive. Anyway, we go to trial. Great cross-examination. It was a hoot. My understanding is we had the jury talking back there, but ultimately they came back and convicted my guy. Lo and behold, what comes up a couple years later? What comes up a couple years later? A letter from the district attorney's office. Oh, and what would that letter be? Oh, our crime lab may have had some contamination issues during the time frame of your case. See, ladies and gentlemen, you have to remember, when you go to court, remember this and never forget it. The district attorney is an advocate. They're an advocate for the state. They're not there to seek justice. They're not there. They say they are. Our job is to seek justice. We wear the white hats. We have little halos above our heads. We never do wrong. Well, think about all those cases where all the people have been wrongfully accused. You think that was because the DAs were looking for truth, justice, and the American way? No, they were looking to win. That's all they cared about. And I'm sure in all those cases where identification was usually at issue in those things, what happens? They poo-poo it. People don't make those mistakes. Oh, come on. How dare you question them? The police said that. Okay? And just like when we question that stuff and they poo-poo it and, the jury's like, well, whatever. And then we get the letter 2 years later when somebody comes in from outside the lab and says, hey, you had some quality control issues during this time period. It could have affected the results. Yeah. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. But how dare you question the authority? Well, that's what a criminal defense attorney is supposed to do. Ask the elephant in the room questions. Bottom line. But how dare you ask him? He got off on a loophole. No, he didn't get off on a loophole. It's called the freaking Constitution, for God's sakes. It's not a loophole. It's the Constitution. And everybody wants to wrap themselves in that loophole when they get charged or a family member gets charged, but it's a loophole to everybody else. That's total crap. Okay? So just remember, don't always trust the government. The old trust but verify. Take what they're saying with a grain of salt. Don't take my word for it. We've talked about this before. Take the founding fathers' word for it. They're smart men. They just got done fighting a revolutionary war, and they said, we're not going to give all of those powers to the king, to our government that the king had. We're not going to do that. We're not going to let you shut down newspapers. We're not going to let you let us peacefully assemble, petition our government, possess firearms, quarter horses and troops in the thing. We're not going to let you come rummage through our belongings. Hey, if you take my property, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to give me a trial. I'm going to have some rights. I can remain silent. You're going to have me a trial. I can have an attorney. I'll have a jury trial in an open proceeding. Oh my God, what a radical idea. You think those founding fathers did that because they're like, we're going to be reading? No, it's everything that everybody in power ever does to screw the little guy. That's it. Look at every little dictator, despot in the world. What do they want to do? Control the narrative, shut everybody down that protests, that asks the questions, the elephant in the room. And then when you ask the questions, they sit there to demean you and belittle you and say, how dare you question me? My credentials are beyond reproach. How dare you? And then when the little despot is gone, guess what? You find out, you get the letter saying, oh, by the way, I guess you were right. But nobody freaking listened. The judges go along with it because they don't understand it. And they think, well, you're just the defense attorney. You're just trying to make hay out of something that really isn't something. Nope, not it. Not it. All right, got another question. Hempland, Texas. Wouldn't you think that the prosecution saved evidence they didn't present at Lori's trial for Chad's trial to make sure that they had their ducks in a row? Thanks for answering our questions. Hempland, thanks. I doubt it. I truly doubt it. Maybe there'll be a little bit of information, but all those text messages, the court had previously ruled, although we didn't get to see it or see the court's order, the court clearly determined under 801 D2E that there was a conspiracy. and that all those text messages with Chad came in as a co-conspirator statement. So otherwise that would be hearsay because it's a statement made by a party opponent who's not there to be subject to cross-examination. It'd be hearsay. And that's an out-of-court statement being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. And there would be a confrontation clause issue. You get a right to cross-examine everyone that comes and testifies against you. And the fact that his statements didn't come, were admitted without being subject to cross-examination by the person who actually said that. Like I said, we didn't get to see the order, but clearly it came in as a co-conspirator statement. No, I don't think we will see anything particularly new in the Chad Daybell trial whenever it goes. Remember, Chad Daybell wants to go in 2024, like October of 2024. If I was Judge Boyce, I'd be like, all right, no, let's have a monthly status of how much time you think you're going to need. And then whatever he requests, you cut it in half and say the job expands to the amount of time given. And we need to move these proceedings along. So I don't think they held anything back. I think that's the best they had. And frankly, this kind of goes to my whole point that I made with the court basically holding these proceedings in chambers, which I hope, although I'm very skeptical, not because I want Lori Vallow to get a new trial, but I just don't want the precedent set that you can try cases in chambers in secret based upon the notion that, we got to protect a fair trial, or we don't want to embarrass somebody or a party to the case is really what it boils down to. So I think that's just bad precedent. And we're already seeing a bit of that in the Brian Kohberger matter, where once again, they have these little Zoom meetings that nobody's made aware of. And, gag orders galore. Nobody can do it. I've agreed to one gag order in a case. One. And it wasn't because it was just a bad case and there was nothing that was going to come good from it. And it was a case of a former, what's the word? I agreed to it. It was a let's just say he was a former man of the cloth. Let's just say it that way. Former man of the cloth. And it had got a lot of attention there for a while. And I just figured maybe just didn't need my name scattered all over the press with that one. This is back in the day we had actual newspapers. They printed newspapers and people read it. So you know how old that was. But I was like, yeah, gag order, you betcha. Just because I didn't want the DA's office in that particular case to they'd already said everything they wanted to say. It didn't matter. I was like, okay, fine. My client's like, yes, gag order. Because he didn't want to be well known when he got to prison. Little did he know, they already knew it. So anyway, but when you're a former man of the cloth, maybe you get a little grace, maybe. I don't know. Let's see here. Do we have any other super chats, or did I answer all those questions? Thank you for the super chats. Let's see here. Jude, I had a classmate. Job expands, man time given. That was certainly true at a former company I worked at. Moms in the trading, yeah. It's true. It's true. And that's the one thing I do like about criminal cases is that they will end. They are usually on some pretty good timelines. Usually on even a complex case, a year and a half out is really what it is, like a homicide case, unless there's really complicated issues like death penalty or mental health issues. But for the most part, you can usually plan on a year from kind of start to finish. Even some, the more serious cases where it's going to go to trial. There's speedy trial issues. Judges aren't going to keep their dockets keep going and going and going. And don't get me wrong. There's some judges that have never seen a motion to continue that they wouldn't grant. I think Judge Boyce seems to be of that nature. But yes. Yes. There you go. All right. Trust but verify. Don't commit dating malpractice. Racisms. There you go. Mama Pink. Listen. Trust but verify. Don't commit dating malpractice. Go to and do as many searches as you need. Cancel anytime. There you go. There you go. Go to crimetalksearch.com. Thanks, Mama Pink, for hitting us up there. There you go. We have the best mods here. Seriously, we have the best mods. Can't make that one go away, Frank. Not sure why I can't make it go away. All right, super chat. And like I said, we don't beg for super chats, but Scott isn't prior advocating for cameras in the court. I believe he is, yes. Now, remember, he's kind of flip-flopped on this issue. Originally, I think he wanted cameras. Then he said he didn't want cameras. Now I think he's back to cameras in the courtroom. I say cameras in the courtroom. The people you got to convince are the prosecutors. And I've talked about this before. Why would the prosecution not want the case televised? Now, we got the audio, and you could go sit and, be a public courtroom, which is required under the both federal and state constitutions. But why would you not want cameras in there? I mean, I don't get that. I am an advocate. I think that they should have cameras in every courtroom and that anybody could watch any courtroom they want. They should be allowed to live stream it and do what they want. I think it helps keep people honest. I really do. I mean, if you want to do something in secret, it's because you don't want to get caught. You're doing something that's not completely above board. So what do you have to hide? Like I said, I have never seen anything like the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell cases where they're literally holding all of their motions hearings in private. Cases have been reversed for that, right? Definitely at trials, but it's a public courtroom. I have done cases more than I can possibly even remember where there have been witnesses testifying about embarrassing facts and circumstances. Sometimes young children having to get in front of a group of people that they've never met and explain terrible things that had taken place. And anybody could come diddy bopping into that courtroom, plop down, watch, and listen as to what's taking place. Is it because the judge, the attorneys wanted to embarrass the child? No, but that's how we do things in America. It's supposed to be open and to the public. And when you stop doing that, you look like, it just looks like a little 2-bit dictatorship, and it makes you wonder what the heck are they hiding? And I wasn't a big, there were a lot of people in Lori Vallow stuff that were like, oh my gosh, they're trying to protect the Mormon church. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that I can say, oh, yep, there it is. I don't think any attorney worth their salt would say, oh, I'm of the same religion as the most popular religion in the state. I'm going to throw this case. No, I don't see that at all. Okay. I remember being an attorney in the Marine Corps, and there were some nasty cases. And you thought, did the Marine Corps want it on the front page of the Navy Marine Corps Times? No. But your job at that point is to the client, not the United States Marine Corps. If the Marine Corps looks bad, sorry about that, but I have a duty to protect my client and do everything you can. So yeah. I don't know. So I don't buy that conspiracy stuff. But if we were able to see, and I'm not, like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing too much. Maybe that's just his style. That's his shtick for the defense there, Mr. Archibald and his co-counsel. But if this is the best they've got in front of a courtroom full of people where the world is listening, imagine how lackluster they were at a motions hearing when they thought no one was watching, for God's sakes. And, I'm sure somebody say, oh, Scott, you're perfect all the time. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. But you're on the biggest stage. Okay. I had a case years ago. You can watch it. Go type in the jury room. I think we've got a link to it somewhere. We uploaded it. And it was me in my younger days, where they did a thing where they got permission to follow attorneys around, tape the trial, and they taped the jury deliberations. And I had a case. It was a child abuse resulting in death case. And, we had a permission from the Colorado Supreme Court because they literally videotaped the jury deliberations, which was always interesting. I still think it's interesting. They were able to do that, and they followed us around. And do you think I didn't prepare for that? Oh, you betcha I did. Did we win the case? Oh, I think we did. She was charged with child abuse resulting in death. She was going to prison, for up to 48 years. They convicted her of misdemeanor child abuse for flicking the child's ear. That was it. Why? Because the real killer, I think I completely destroyed on cross-examination. And you're prepared. But I'm also an advocate for the courtrooms, not because I want to be there. I mean, it was just I was a young court-appointed attorney. They're like, "Hey, you got this case going to go to trial?" "Oh, yeah, it's going to trial." "Hey, Colorado Supreme Court's okay with this." "Okay, let's do it." And they did like 4 series from each state. I think one was in Ohio, and then here in Colorado, they did 4 cases. I thought it was an interesting experiment in it, but I think it shows how important it is for people to understand how the system works. And yeah, important stuff, I say. All right. Was that the last super chat there, Frank? Is that the last one? I think the one at the top there. Oh, no, we haven't talked about that one yet. Let me see if I can get it. Moonshadow wants to know, are there any cases you feel the person is just so guilty and you feel their crime is so heinous that you refuse to represent them? No. And the reason why I believe that, and don't get me wrong, I have met pure evil in the world, and I mean that, pure evil. But they deserve zealous representation, regardless. And I've said this before, because if we allow the prosecutors, the government, to railroad guilty people, guess what? Then they'll start thinking that they can get away with it and doing it to innocent people as well, like their enemies, the people they don't like. They can do that. And you want a strong defense so that when it goes up on appeal, whether there's a guilty plea or there's a trial and there's a conviction, the appellate record looks at it and says, this guy received one hell of a defense, man. That attorney was good. I don't think there's much more anybody could have done to try and test the weight of the evidence that the prosecution had in this particular case. And that's a good thing, because then there's no ineffective assistance of counsel issues that go on for the next 20, 30 years. So I have represented people that have done some absolutely heinous crimes, for sure. But I think they all deserve representation. And if I don't do it, somebody else will. So I think, yeah. And don't get me wrong, there are certain cases that I do not like. And I've told this story, and sometimes people don't believe me, right? I can literally sit at my desk, eat my lunch, look at autopsy photos. Doesn't bother me. But I had a case once, and let's just say it involved probably one of the sickest individuals I've ever met in my life. And when I say somebody's just not wired right, this is what I mean. Just not wired right. And let's just say that this person was accused of doing some heinous things. And we're not talking like to young, we're talking babies. Okay. And the disgusting filth that they found on this guy's computer, it was unlike anything that I had ever seen. Nor do I ever want to see again. Just not wired right, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. And we're not talking about, the 21-year-old that dates the 16-year-old girl that looks like she's a little older, or 15-year-old girl. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully. That's not the case. And then you got the true definition of a pedo, right? Somebody that likes prepubescent. That's the definition. Well, the stuff that I had to go view at the government office, because it was so bad they wouldn't give us a copy of it, and I'm so glad I never got it. But I had to go view it, and it was one of those things like, okay, we done yet? Clearly, these were babies. Okay. And I remember when this gentleman, to use that term loosely, this man, this individual, he got released from prison, and he wasn't supposed to be near anyone under the age of 18. And he got picked up, coincidentally, working across from a grade school. And they said, "Hey, will you represent this guy again?" The court did. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. He was difficult. Didn't see anything wrong with it. And like I said, the filth, ladies and gentlemen, that this person had on his computer, it was the most disgusting thing you'd ever seen. Don't even want to go into it. But let's just say their philosophy was that they were going to do these terrible things, and they needed to find people that couldn't communicate. So think about how young that has to be. Think about that. So there are some people out there in the world, and this is coming from a criminal defense attorney, that are not redeemable. Okay? That particular individual was one of them. Okay? And those very similar, situated to that, not good. Okay? We're not talking, like I said, we're not talking about the guy that thinks the teenager's cute or whatever. Clearly an age difference, not condoning it, but it is a totally different level of sicko that exists at that point. Just totally different level of sicko. So just, if people actually knew the crime that took place around them and the depravity of the people around them, they would never leave their house. I swear to God. I remember when I met the lovely Miss Kristen, I told her as such. I said, if you had any idea of the crime that took place in this world, you would literally lock your doors at night, go to sleep in the fetal position with a firearm to protect yourself. People have no clue what goes on. I was having a conversation today with somebody from accounting, and I said, well, they asked the question. I was like, well, don't you watch the news? And this person was like, no, I don't watch the news. I want to live in my little bubble and never know what's going on around me so that I don't worry about it. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to worry about it. I'm telling you, it's a dangerous world from somebody that has represented dangerous people. Okay. And do you think those people that are prohibited from having firearms, they call them possession by a previous offender, prohibited person in possession of a firearm? You think they're saying, well, the law says I can't have a firearm? No, because they're in a dangerous business. They look for targets of opportunity. And what's a target of opportunity? Somebody that's weak, somebody that comes across as weak. That's what they look for. I have asked them, how did you decide on this particular little target over here? They were just putting off a vibe that they were timid and weak. Didn't think they'd had a gun in the house. That's what they look for. Common sense 101. Okay? Big group kumbaya hug is not going to solve the world's problems, ladies and gentlemen. And like I said, I did trial last week. We gave it everything we had. Jury came back and said, yep, took place. Client's going to prison for a long time. And I really, truly believe that the jury's like, hey, you seem like a nice guy there, Mr. Reich. Even your client may seem like a nice guy, but we just can't have people going around doing that kind of stuff out here. It's dangerous. People get killed. So, just saying. Just saying. All right. Can you believe we've already done an hour program? And, well, guess what? We have to do our Patreon show. So if you're not a Patreon, you should probably join between now and then. I think, did our food ever show up, Frank? Yeah. Okay, Frank, the hardest working man in show business. Normally I try to get a little earlier. Frank, what do you want for dinner? What do you want? Today, like I said, I was on the phone for an hour and a half up until we got here. So it's been a busy, busy day. And I wasn't even supposed to be here all week. Can you imagine if all this was going on this week? Client gets arrested, have to travel to state back east. Yeah. Carrie wants to know, Scott, can we get a shirt that says, just saying? Yes, we can. Just saying. What can I tell you? It's a Reichism. I was just looking at that. Scott's a very nice guy and only $10,000 a minute. No, we don't charge like that. Although I think at one point they said in voir dire, yeah, lawyers like to talk because it would take all day. It was a serious case, right? You have multiple counts of attempted first-degree murder and a sundry of other charges, of which I might add got dismissed halfway through, or they dismissed. Because guess what? We tested their evidence and they couldn't meet their burden. That's the way the system works, ladies and gentlemen. Always remember that. And like I said, I've said this before. We were talking to somebody on I think it was on our Patreon show. It was a call-in. Because remember, as Patreon, you can call in and we can have this conversation. And somebody said, well, we're in the same town, Mr. Archibald, and, maybe we haven't been very nice to him. And I said, hey, I get it. It's human nature. How can you represent those people? How can you represent those people that are, they're so guilty? Sleep like a baby on my silk sheets, right? No, the guilty ones aren't a problem. It's the innocent ones that keep you up at night. But just remember, next time you see a criminal defense attorney, you don't need to go up and give him a hug. Maybe pay a retainer. Just kidding. But, tell them, hey, I hope your client loses, but thank you for doing what you do. Because in reality, they're protecting everybody's rights. I know you don't think so, but I'm telling you, all those cases that started Supreme Court and worked their way up, go through the state courts and the federal courts, little street lawyers, little guys down there that actually try cases. Every day. The guys down there in the trenches, triaging cases, coming up with issues, making arguments, judges poo-pooing them, prosecutors dismissing you as, really? I am on the side of good and light, and how dare you question the integrity of my officer? Oh, really? Because I got this in the other case saying that he's got a integrity violation issue in his file. Haven't turned that over to me just yet. Oh, yeah. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, not everyone in the government is everything that they say they are. They're not. Don't trust but verify. I don't care who it comes from. I don't care if it's a DA, a mayor, a spokesperson, Democrat or Republican, they're probably lying to you. That's what they do. That's what they do. All right. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you'll come join us for our Patreon show. Frank and I are going to eat something very quick, and then we'll be there in like 5 or 10 minutes, and we will resume our conversation. And don't forget, that's right, we got the new Magic 8 Ball. Remember the old Magic 8 Ball that one of my associates gave to me, gosh, probably 20 years ago? The lovely Miss Kristen got me a new one, and not the high-speed, low-drag one that doesn't do it, the one that actually does it. So we'll be asking Magic 8 Ball the important questions before we sign off tonight. And, we can talk about the Brian Kohberger case and, Mr. K-Bar, since we have a Mr. K-Bar here. We can talk about that. We can talk about Lori Vallow, or, hey, it's a Patreon show. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. So we'll see you all in just a few minutes. Thanks for watching.